I must resist this cultural temptation to get into convenience and comfort and isolation.
Hey friends, and welcome to the Global Leadership Podcast. Have you ever wondered what it would look like to see the people around you, your team, your friends, your family, your church, absolutely thriving? Let's be honest, who hasn't thought that? We all want to live our best lives. Well, today's guest has spent his entire career helping people do just that. He's learned how to create environments where people can connect, belong, and truly come alive. But first, can I ask you a quick favor? If you're not already subscribed, would you take a moment to hit that button? It's free, and it makes sure you never miss any of the fresh, actionable leadership content we bring you every month. Because here at the Global Leadership Network, we believe that your leadership really matters. When a leader gets better, everyone around them benefits. So go ahead and subscribe, and let's keep growing together. Now, on to today's episode. Today's guest is Bradley Rapier, an award-winning Emmy-nominated choreographer with over 3 decades of experience in dance, production, and leadership from Hollywood to Broadway. And listen, even if dance isn't really your thing, don't tune out just yet, because what Bradley's really passionate about is something every leader can relate to. What happens when people feel truly engaged and connected? Maybe you're leading a team at work, or maybe you're raising teenagers. Maybe you're part of a creative group or a circle of friends, whatever your setting. When people genuinely feel that they belong, everything changes, including productivity, creativity, and joy. They all rise. Bradley calls this concept stepping into the circle. That's right. He calls it stepping into the circle. It's an invitation to show up, to connect, and to bring your whole self to the moment. So let's dive in. Here's Bradley's conversation with GLN President and CEO, David Ashcraft.
Bradley spoke at this year's summit and was probably one of the most creative presentations that I have seen, Bradley. So thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to be with you guys. It's a great community, so I just greatly appreciate it. I had a wonderful time.
Very good. So Bradley is, you heard his description on the introduction, but has been involved in various TV shows, The Ellen Show, So You Think You Could Dance, Dancing with the Stars. Known for something that I'm not known for, and that's your ability to dance. And you've done a lot of productions, created things off Broadway, production called The Groovaloos, and you've been involved with directors of Hamilton, Jersey Boys. So a lot of fun things that way. But before we talk about kind of what you're doing now, let's talk about your history real quick, Bradley, because you grew up in Canada, right?
I did. It's funny. I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, which for our side name is Cowtown, because it's known for the Calgary Stampede. It's actually like the Texas of Canada. It's ranch land, farmland, and then a city, but we're also an hour away from the Rocky Mountains. So just an incredible place to grow up.
I would probably like it then if it's the Canada version of Texas. So fun description that way. So as I heard your story, you didn't intend to go into dance, and neither did your family or your dad intend for you to go into dance. So describe a little bit of your upbringing and your dad's reaction to where you are today.
Yeah, well, being where we were, I grew up in this area called Lake Buena Vista. It's actually the first man-made lake in all of Canada. So I had this wild life that in the summer we'd come running off from school into the lake. In the winter it froze over. Of course, had the hockey rinks. We're in Canada. So I grew up very active. I was very academic and an athlete.
Were you a hockey player then?
I played hockey as a younger kid. Always skated. I still skate. But then I got into track, and I played football, even into university for the years I went to university. Okay. Skiing was my favorite because I was an hour and a half. I was an hour and a half in the Rocky Mountains, the best skiing. Well, for me, the best skiing in the world. And so I did a lot of skiing. But the situation was I'm the youngest of 4. And my father professional, my uncle professional, all doctors and that type of thing. And my older siblings, none of them chose to go into the professional area. They all kind of went more entrepreneurial or different ways. And my dad was kind of I was the last one. And I was a straight A student, Dean's List kid. And I liked school and I liked getting good grades and I did well. So it was kind of like out of nowhere that this happened, that I saw this dance. So my father,
You're kind of your dad's last hope, the last hope. Yeah,
I was the golden child, you know.
Yeah.
And we would talk about it. I would sit with him as he played jazz music, which he loved, and he'd talk about medicine and scholarship stuff. And then then I saw this dance. So for him, it was tough on my dad. Thankfully, my dad's not like a mean tyrant, but he was confused. He thought I was crazy for many years. As a matter of fact, my father.
Bradley, did you go to college then for something different? Did you start out in college thinking you were going to go into the medical field, or?
Oh, absolutely. I went to university. I went right into the University of Calgary, right into the Bachelor of Science. I was doing a microbiology degree. I was playing football for the university. I was running track for the university and studying sciences and doing all that stuff. And a couple years into it, 2 or 3 years in, I see this dance, which made no sense back then. It'd make more sense, David, if I said, Dad, I want to be a rodeo clown. Because there was no culture of dance. There wasn't these shows that are on now, even in the States, let alone Canada. The dance didn't exist yet. So it just made no sense to him. He reminded me every year, his son, McGill University, which is where he went to school, a very prominent school in Canada. He reminded me, they still want to have you. They still want to have you there. And until I did my first Super Bowl halftime show, that's when he kind of took a breath a little bit. And
so Bradley, back up from there. So you're in university, you're studying to be a doctor, and somehow you saw a dance or you saw something that captivated your mind, right?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So I would say, I shared about this, when I spoke on your wonderful stage, but I was dealing with a lot of things. Like on the exterior, there's a lot of good things happening. I'm in a nice neighborhood. I have a lot of friends. Now, at the same time, I'm the only kid that looks like me. It was more of a cultural issue, wasn't some kind of horrible thing. My best friends are still from up there. But there was turmoil in my family, besides even the fact my parents were starting to fight and have their disagreements. My older siblings were really going at each other. And to the point where I'm the youngest. When you're younger, everything's bigger. So I was a pretty scared, nervous kid. I kept smiling. Like I always had that sort of sense of, I was kind of a scared hopefulness because I was kind of nervous, but I'd walk to my friends and they'd be whatever, get the good grades, go to school, study, do the sports. What are my friends doing? I was more guided by wanting to belong, wanting to be there with my friends, hoping I could stay part of the cool club if that's what it was. I didn't really have a lot, not that my parents weren't good parents, but there wasn't a guiding principle. There wasn't a home that was like that. It was like learn from the culture. And so I had a lot of
it's interesting as you're describing yourself. So you'd have been the guy that everybody else wanted to be, the athlete, the scholar, and and yet inside you were finding yourself feeling lack of confidence that maybe wouldn't have shown to other people. So
absolutely. I realized how lost I was going through high school, and then my parents did divorce, and just before that, and I really was lost. Now, all I knew at that time, as I talk about the line versus the circle, was to jump back in the line. Just head down, get back to school, get in there, get the grades, do the thing, run the track, keep being active. But after a few years of that, I was actually doing okay at school. But I was just churning with this. What is anything for? When my parents divorced, I'll just say, for me, the stability got just ripped from me because I didn't see it coming. My siblings did. They're like, "Oh yeah, that was obvious." I'm like, "What?" And as things unravel, when no divorce is fun. I was really looking for purpose and meaning, to be honest. And of all things, I see this dance, and it wasn't necessarily the dance, but there's something that I believe I was given this great opportunity through this culture to find out who I was, because the culture, as I talk about in my talk, demanded that I step into the circle past my fears and past my comparisons and past my feelings of not being good enough.
So you see this dance, it begins to change your perspective. So instantly, did you think, oh, that's what I want to be? I want to be a dancer. And you kind of threw out the dream of being a doctor, or was it a transitional thing? And how was your dad responding to it as you were going through this?
Well, initially, everyone was pretty supportive because it was cool. And this is years ago, so it wasn't a big thing in Canada, but we were part of the group that I joined was called Streetscape, and it was actually the premier group in the country. It was the first group to bring popping and boogaloo to Canada. So we were helping to teach the country. We were getting a bit of prominence in little local shows and a few regional shows. But we weren't like thriving artists, but it was pretty cool. But I was still going to school. I was still studying. I still getting my grades. I was still playing, running track for the university. I was still playing football for the Dinosaurs. That's our team up in Calgary. But I was pushing. I was almost ignoring the internal challenge I was going through and just doing all I could externally to stay busy, because that's what I knew. That's all I knew, was to keep pushing down that line. And at some point, it was starting to break down. And I remember my third year of university is where I first got like a kind of a bad grade for me, and because I was used to get good grades, and it hit me. And then the dance I kept seeing something there. And when I was initially doing it, it was just kind of little odd gigs. And then when he asked me to join the group, then at the same time I was dealing with this, in Canada, we have a company called Sun Ice. It's like America's, like Canada's Nike or Canada's, Adidas, big company. And they saw what this was becoming, street dance culture. And they signed us as just kids, young kids at university, to travel and tour the country, representing them. So I said, Dad, I'm going to take this time. I told the university I'm going to take some time off, and that time off never ended.
Yeah, that's amazing. I don't know that I've heard that part of your story. It's so fun to hear that. So Bradley, as you're going in, at what point did you start? Obviously, you continue to have success, and you've done a lot of choreography and had success that way. At what point did you see yourself as a leader? Did you, at that point, identify yourself as a leader? Had you been a leader on your sports teams, or where did that kind of come into play?
I think the leadership started when I was in the group in Canada, not from the group. I was learning from the two other members that were the elders of the group. But as the group broke up, I was bit by the bug. I was not going to stop doing this. And I just started to go on my own journey into the culture of dance and choreography. And I started to choreograph for companies in Canada initially. And being put in that leadership role, I'm in charge now. I got to choreograph this piece for major companies in Canada. And then when I got to New York, now I was back to kind of figuring things out. I got to Los Angeles, and the leadership kind of really kicked into full gear there. When being in LA, I thought, because of my learning in Canada, when you got to LA, all the street dance and hip hop community would hang out, and there'd be like kind of this place where they all gather and be community. And I was still wounded from I still was craving family. I have a certain natural, welcoming, encouraging spirit about me. And I love to have people feel like they belong, because I know what it's like not to feel that way. So when I got to LA, I was looking for that. And when it wasn't there, then my wife and I started just having gatherings to do that. We just started inviting people to meet at auditions and at clubs and places and say, come on over, we're going to have food, some music, hang out, let's just live life together. And that became what we called Groove Night, that developed over 20 years and built into this massive network between the Groovaloos, but beyond that, to the members that were the founders of the Jabberwockies and Super Crew, and all those groups were forming and coming in, and they were looking to me to say, oh, can we do this here? And then I started to share my desire to tell stories, to have this dance culture do more than just excite them with movement, but to have a deeper message come out through all of the creativity.
Part of what you've done, you mentioned earlier about kind of living your life in a linear way, but then you've talked about the circle. And so maybe describe a little bit about what that means. And let me just say, too, again, what I loved about your summit talk, Bradley, from the instant the lights came up on you for your talk, you were moving. And it was just fun to see that. I thought it was very creative the way you gave your talk, but then even described what it means to be in the circle. And it really has a lot to do with disengagement, challenging people to step in and maybe move beyond your fears or your apprehensions, step into the circle, engage with other people, which then leads to creativity. But describe that a little bit more in that concept.
Really, you take GLS and GLN, like take everybody that's involved in that. You are all in one big circle. And then there's smaller circles, medium circles, the marketing department and the tech department and all those aspects. And then the individuals in the circles. So circles really are groups of people or teams, just large, medium, small, and then the individual. But the goal of every circle is that the edge of a circle represents that protection. It represents the protection and contains the focus and the energy and the values and the culture of that circle. That's why there is a challenge to get into a circle, because that sort of edge is protecting the integrity.
So it's kind of the distinctions of that group or the values of that group or things like that. Yeah, interesting.
Absolutely. So that's what the circle represents. Now, when I ask people to step in the circle, it's not about being in the center all the time. We can't all be in the center. It's not about being the center of attention necessarily. It's that idea of whatever layer you're on. And I share in my book, as I get into these things, the training of the circle, because it's a little bit more in depth where there's layers of this circle leading from the outside to the middle. But just in short, the idea is that are you in a circle, and these circles that are, whether they're professional or personal, are you actively engaged and participating in that circle? It doesn't mean that you're micromanaging and you're, over people's shoulders. It might mean that you are leaving space, but are you actively engaged in that? And just as an example, let's say you have a regional person in your company, and they're part of the company, the regional manager, let's say, and they can be what I call on the edge of the circle, where there's a trap of the edge of the circle where you either start retreating or repeating. So what that means is you sort of figured it out. If I do this so much stuff, this kind of works. I give these enough incentives, it's kind of working, and it makes the wheels roll. But I'm not stretching myself. I'm just kind of repeating myself. That's when you repeat. Or you start to retreat because you feel like just get insecure. You're able to do things more remotely. You kind of just pull back and you're not involved. I call that the edge of imitation, where you're just going around and you're just repeating what it is. And there's something in you that says to stretch a little further, get engaged a little further, get more activated with your people. So the regional managers sort of on the edge, just sending little things where the people under him are sacrificing their time with their family, they're sacrificing their time with other things to really kind of do what they can, but they don't really sense that the regional manager is with them, knows them intimately in terms of business, and also has shown them his ability to step in the circle, meaning to be with humility, to let himself be made look silly per se. Has he allowed an atmosphere that lets his workers know they can, quote, make mistakes and stumble through, or has he made it sort of a distant directive? So stepping in the circle is that active engagement, and at all times, whether it's personal or professional.
So Bradley, it's the idea of becoming vulnerable with the people you're around, becoming real, authentic, I think is what I'm hearing you say. And where you get stuck in that repeat cycle, or you talked about retreat, that's probably where it feels safer sometimes to say, I don't think I need to go further as far as opening myself up to this group of people. So you're talking about more than just jumping in and doing the work. You're talking about opening yourself up on a very personal level with the people that you're in the circle with, or the people that are on your team or you're working with. Is that right?
Absolutely. And there's more detail that I could get into, but for now, there's aspects that as you move towards the center, which is more actually stepping into, I say that the circle is an invitation to step into who you're designed to be. So that's what that involves. And it's accepting that invitation every day to do that as a leader of your family or your business. And as you sort of step off that edge, I call the next layer, just as a short example, sort of the inner layer, that shallow edge before you're in the deep end, because the circle is deep. A line is shallow, a circle is deep. And as you step into that shallow end, that's when you get prey to comparisons. You're stepping in. So there's different things that, as we go through the step in the circle framework, we sort of analyze and practically look at what are you now, which way are you perceiving what is happening, and which way are you activating and get engaged, and how are you reminding yourself why you're doing this. So I love the fact that I've been able to take this culture. Like, who would think that a dance culture created in the inner city would have given an outlook or another analogy that would help people in life and in business? But truly, it's that idea of engagement. And it's an extreme example because in that dance culture, if you are to belong in that culture, whether the music's right, whether you like the atmosphere, whether you're in the different countries, you won't be sort of allowed to be participating or be considered to be part of the culture if you keep saying I'm not stepping in. So by having to do that in my world initially, and now translating that to you and to your listeners, to say, let me show you what ways it is the same, and what ways the things you're experiencing are the same, and what ways you're experiencing are perceptions that maybe you need to sort of get what I call a groove mindset to allow you to really flourish.
Hey everybody, it's Eric, content producer for the Global Leadership Podcast. Wanted to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's episode, Best Christian Workplaces. Every leader wants a thriving culture, but too often we make assumptions about what's wrong or settle for quick fixes that don't touch the heart of the problem. Flourishing workplaces start with leaders who listen, and Best Christian Workplaces has developed the Employee Engagement Survey that can help you hear your team clearly and lead with wisdom. This isn't just data. It's a scientifically designed, biblically rooted guide that reveals how your people are really doing and what they need to flourish. Visit workplaces.org and take the first step toward a culture where people are seen, valued, and ignited for greater kingdom impact. Again, special thanks to Best Christian Workplaces for sponsoring today's episode.
So you're kind of going there right now. Can you describe, like, if I choose not to step into my circle? So again, You describe circle could be the department I'm working in, the company I'm working for, the people I hang out with. If I decide to stay on the fringe or I decide to retreat, what am I missing out on if I choose to not jump in?
Well, I think it's twofold. One is that on the micro, you yourself, right now as we're talking together, right? Because we're stepping in the circle together. We're engaging, right? I could have sent you an email with some answers or whatever, but we're talking, we're in the circle of verbal cipher together. And by doing that, as I speak to you, I get more clarity on actually what I think, right? Even though I say, I know the circle, I know every detail, but as I'm in the circle, I am getting clarity, I'm getting more impact, and I'm getting more growth in myself on what I actually believe. I can't get that outside of that. So that's the micro. On the macro, I make a charge to people about stepping in the circle of our obligation to do so. And I put it in this way, in that, we have a lot of talk about AI these days, and AI is going to be there to help many, many people and businesses. But I remind people that I believe, are the authentic AI. We're the original AI, meaning we are the artistic inspiration AI. We are the authentic innovation. We are the audacious invention. We have that access because only we as humans have access to those inspirations that machines cannot get, or that technology does not have access to. That's an obligation that if we forfeit and just say, well, someone else will figure that out, it's not true. And also you, David, will get a unique ability to share things that only you will, that will affect certain people that only you can. We can't get around that. We can try to think we have enough, get the app, get that app, that does that. It's not, it's a false belief. And so that's the charge I give to people. There's the micro growth on your own personal life of finding out what you really believe and understanding the things you think you believe. Well, have you tested them? Have you stepped out and shared them? And on the macro, are you truly understanding the role that we have that only we can fill?
So even on a personal side, I think what I'm hearing you say, Bradley, is if I choose to remain on the outside of the circle, I'm really never fully developed. I don't know what my thoughts are, if they're real or not, or if they're truth or not, they're effective or not. When I step into the circle, not only am I helping other people, but as other people interact with me and speak into my life, that it helps me grow and develop, be more effective at whatever my purpose is in life. And change, which is interesting. So you're talking about this from a leadership standpoint. Why is it important for leaders to grab hold of this concept of stepping into the circle or just deeper engagement with people relationally?
Well, my experience, both in the entertainment world and the business world, in the business world of entertainment and then the business world of entrepreneurship, there's just, as you mentioned earlier, we are in this epidemic of disengagement, right? And mixed with the lockdowns, mixed with remote technology, mixed with AI, we've kind of gotten comfortable with that idea. And so many leaders that are either leaders by choice or by the only ones left standing are in a position, as I speak and meet them, are whether they have achieved great things, are very insecure. Many of them are very insecure of their leadership and thinking it is something that maybe it's not. Thinking it's something they need to force. And so my hope is, as I share this, is that they're seeing not that it's necessarily not going to be challenging, but that the answer is easy. So, for example, when you're in the outside of a circle, even as a leader, you're coming to a new group and you are, a new team that now you're thrust upon to be the lead. You signed the deal and now you're the leader, and you're looking at a group of new faces. The fallback for that very often, if ego gets in the way, then you kind of think, well, I should be respected already. Certain things should just happen, and there will be a disconnect. You won't know why, but you'll be acting at a bit of a distance from people because you kind of think, well, I'm the leader. Let's just get this done. Let's get that done. On the other side of the way, if you have fear of rejection, which maybe that's historical in your life, or just life makes us fear of rejection, then you will come from a position and you still won't engage, really get to the circle. And it's interesting that one of your themes is, in the company and everything you guys talk about is curiosity. One of the biggest keys I start from the very beginning to just get attached, whether you're a leader or even joining a circle, is that level of curiosity. Because when you choose curiosity, and it's a choice, over the fear and the apprehension, then the beautiful thing about curiosity, it forces you to change your attention to them. Because now I'm curious about what's David about. Yeah, what's David about, or what's GLS or GLN about. Yeah. And then it's like when you buy a new car, right? And you're getting curious about this new car. Well, next you know, you're walking in there, you know all about the carburetors and the engines, you know the salespeople. You now are part of that culture. You're in there, and you are part of that. And so that curiosity is one of the best weapons, I would say, on that initial either ego or fear to start joining a group, because you start to get truly invested in the other people and what they're about. So now you are getting the inspiration for how you can bring them solutions. And now, because it's curious, you're stepping in further with this excitement and this area of allowing yourself to discover and explore what the answers are, as opposed to thinking, I'm the leader, I must have all the answers, or I'm not a good leader. And that's been taught to us. Over time.
And yeah, we would say at the summit all the time, leadership isn't about your position, meaning you can be labeled the leader of the group, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to follow you in that way. You have to earn it as you open yourself up. And so I think what I'm, again, hearing you say, Bradley, over and over is by stepping into the circle, you're going to grow, develop yourself personally. You're going to influence others. Creativity is going to soar, and you're going to increase your creativity. Just because people are going to point out different things. And so having that sense of curiosity to say, man, I'm going to step in, open myself up, learn about other people, which is going to impact me and change me.
Well, you know, what you touched on that's really powerful. So when I think about the circle, as I said, is that invitation to step into that circle for everything we've discussed. And then as you step in it over and over again, there are, in a sense, actual applications to help you to get each layer, right? To say, okay, let me be curious now. Let me choose to see this and that to get to the next level. But as you start to repeat that, then you get what I call a trusting in something larger, which I call the groove. And so you go from the actions of the circle and these practices that help you to lead and going, okay, I've got to do this, to then building a trust in that process. And as you get trust, you get this grounding in something larger than yourself that you're stepping into, that you, whether it's an actual circle or a group of people or one-on-one, you now are getting this different grounding than just knowing the applications work. Okay, I'm being curious, that's great, but no, wait a second. I notice that I'm sitting comfortably in who I am, and I'm able to engage because I don't know exactly where this is going to go. I release control of the outcome, but I just trust that this process works. And that's getting more towards resting and sitting in that, what I call the groove.
Yeah, interesting. So Bradley, let's say somebody like you described yourself when you were growing up. On the outside, everything looks like you got it all together and you're confident. On the inside, you're kind of questioning yourself a little bit, doubtful of who you are. And so you're on the outside of the circle. So how do you, and again, circle can imply lots of different things, but let's say you find yourself very disengaged. Let's say you find yourself hesitant to really step into any particular group. What do you say to that person, and how do you encourage them to step into a group?
Yeah, so I think that when I think about stepping in the circle, there will be that group that is sort of hits you. You feel, you either just desire to be part of the group, or there's sort of a call, like you're like
so some kind of connection. Yeah,
some kind of connection. And the two things that are there is, one is patience, because I talk lightly in the actual keynote, but in my book I describe it a little more fully. But the idea of the transactional versus the relational, the line versus the circle, the idea, and they're both valuable, right? It's valuable to have your goals preset. I'm going to do this. I need to get to that place. But I like to say that we walk along a line, we step into a circle, and we can get just as it's like when you get in a car and you're driving somewhere and you have really no deadline, but you know how we are. We start driving. Next thing we're like, I just got to get there. And next, we're not looking at anything to the side of the road. We're just getting, pick up the order windows to get food in the car, because we have this sort of preconceived innate thing to say, just get there, as opposed to exploring and seeing what it might be and seeing what that exit might be. So the actual first answer to that is the idea that there's going to be patience, because no relationship, we're talking more relationally, and you can't force a relation. You can't you might really want to be part of that group, but it may be a group that it's a year later that you're really truly involved. And I found with the Groovelers, just as an example, we had many people want to be part of the Groovelers. We became pretty prominent, and people were like, hey, can I get in your group? And sometimes I knew it was they didn't fit with the values we had, but they'd keep coming around, and then other people I'd see, and sometimes be like a year and a half later, I go, you know what? Let's make this him. He's a Grooveloo now, because it'd be like that. I would make them a Grooveloo, because I saw that they were now there. They've been chosen to be curious about things. So if people that are afraid, it's kind of like, well, where are you now? What's happening in your life now? And if you are honest with yourself, looking at that record of, in a sense, being disconnected, what has that gotten you?
Yeah, okay.
And what can you lose by choosing to get engaged? You're going to learn more about who you are. You're going to learn more about what you stand for. And you're actually going to learn more about these other people. And you may get to become part of a team that's glorious, that becomes best friends or successful business.
Yeah,
and
I like that.
It's truly a moment of, what am I here for? Am I here just to be on my own? Am I here just to be in my own subsistence? Or am I to engage and being part of things? And I think we're designed as social creatures. And if we can remind ourselves that we were not designed to be alone, we were not designed to be isolated. And we know that if we can get real about it, those things, isolation, are leading this to be, even with all the technology that we have, to have, I think one of the highest rates of suicide and isolation and depression and medication. So obviously that idea of isolation, as much as technology might fool us, is a lie that we have to sort of go, that's not true. I must resist this cultural temptation to get into convenience and comfort and isolation. And I must press on to being, and that might just start with my one friend I have, and then it might just be a few other people I have, or that group of pickleball players. Can I try and play with them and maybe play for a while, and then maybe a month in we have a get together at one of their houses. Like that's
keep going further with them. Yeah,
keep going further with them.
One last question, Bradley. What about you're the leader inside the circle? What do you need to do to notice people outside the circle? Are you responsible to notice people that are on the outside and try to pull them in, or you've got your group and you don't worry about it? How do you even develop an eye for people outside of the circle, outside of your group?
And it's a challenge, obviously, for larger corporations, because obviously a CEO of a massive company can't be in a circle with 2,000 people. But he's in a circle with his 8 or his 10 or his 5 that then he trusts to, again, replicate what he's doing. So he has to show this example. And so the person that's leading is the one to be the first to be the example of what it means to step in a circle. And I'll give you one great mini story. When I was working with Des McAnuff is a Broadway Tony Award-winning director. He did Jersey Boys, Tommy, and I've choreographed a couple of shows for him, one on Broadway, one off Broadway. And when I first came in, I was a newbie, I was the new kid. All his collaborators, Tony Award-winning set designers, costume designers, like the top of the line that have been in his circle, his team for years. I'm new, he brings me in. And I remember we're sitting there and we're around a table and there's a little model of the stage. And he looks at me early on in front of everybody, in front of the set designer and the tech designer and all that, and says, Bradley, what about this set? Do you like this set? What do you think should change? What's wrong with this set? And I'm like, and he could read my mind and he said, Bradley, I want you to know, he didn't say these exact words, but be paraphrasing. He said, you all are here for certain things. Your titles, which I call moves, my move was choreographer, or set designer. Those moves have brought you here. But now that you're here, you're in this, he didn't say circle, but he said, you're in this team. I want to hear from everybody. I don't care where the ideas come from. I will make the decision and you'll have to all submit to the fact that I might say that's good, that's not good, but I want to hear it. So as the leader in the what you can manage, again, you can't be the leader necessarily of 2,000 people at one time, but you're a group of 12 or 20 or 50 that you're leading particularly, your job is to walk in there and let them know they can speak up. Obviously you have your structures in place so it's not chaos, but you're able to look who's hiding, and you are encouraging them to step out because you've shown them that when you step out and, let's say, look a little silly, it's okay. Or if you give an idea that doesn't quite work, that's fine. And that we have times to get the reps in. And I want to give one thing to share. Every company has to find ways that within their company, are they giving their teams and their members places to get the reps in? What I mean by that is every time I step in the circle, I'm getting a rep in. And the reason why, quote, artists seem to be more comfortable with this is because to do what we do, from the beginning, we had to get our reps in. If I'm a singer, I was singing for my family, then for my recital, then a street corner, then a little club. So every time I had to do that. Does your company allow your teams ways to get reps in for the high-risk things in some kind of way? Or are they only finding out once a year how to do the presentation and all the weights on that? That's really a problem when companies aren't allowing or position themselves to allow for these reps to step in the circle that occur in their companies.
I love that. I mean, that's how you develop leaders, is giving them, in your words, reps to do it over and over. And you can't build that muscle unless you're doing it again and again. So, Bradley, this is fun. Thank you for spending time with us today. Thank you for stepping in our circle here and letting us grow as you talk with us. If we want to keep up with you said you've got a book that's coming out. So name of the book is going to be?
Step in the Circle.
Okay,
and
good.
So the book is set for release February, March 2026.
Great.
And the best way to stay in touch with me is, I have a website, which is my name, bradleyrapier.com.
Okay.
But on there as well, there's a newsletter. You just click on the newsletter. That newsletter, you can, once you're on the website and you click on the newsletter, sign up, you'll get a weekly newsletter. You also get a PDF on 5 ways for you to step in the circle this week, but you'll get all the updates on the book, when it's coming out, where I'm going to be, and plus tips and groove points and insights once a week.
Great. Bradley, thank you. Great to talk with you today. Great to have you at the summit. Tell your family hello. They were with you at the summit.
I will. Thank you so much. You guys were amazing. We are so grateful to how well you took care of us.
That's great. Bradley, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, David.
Wow, what an incredible conversation. When Bradley said that stepping into the circle is an invitation to become who you are designed to be, you guys, that really, really landed for me. Professionally, I've seen how powerful it is when I step into the circle with my team, when I remind them that they are not alone with the projects we're overseeing, the conversations that we're having, and that I am in it with them. As leaders, when we do that, it builds trust and momentum. And personally, this idea hit home too. Just recently, I went through a season where I felt really disconnected from my friendships. And to be honest, it would have been easy to stay isolated, but I decided to make the first move to step into that circle. I reached out, I started inviting women to get together, and now they're some of my closest friends. They are actually helping me become who God designed me to be. So here's my question for you. What circle can you develop? Do you already have one that needs to be strengthened? Or is it time to start a new one, even if it's small, 1 or 2 friends? Imagine who you could become in a year if you started building that circle today. Who will you be? What will your community look like? And if you loved hearing from Bradley, I have got some great news for you. He was one of our Global Leadership Summit speakers. At the summit, we are committed to bring you world-class thought leaders just like Bradley, and you can already snag your GLS 26 tickets. Maybe you're thinking it would be so cool to attend a summit near me. Well, you can. Just head over to globalleadership.org/summit to find a host site near you. Or if you're dreaming a little bigger, maybe you'd love to host a summit at your church or your organization. You can find out how at hostthesummit.org. Imagine learning from leaders like Bradley together with your team in your own community, maybe even in your own circle. How incredible would that be? As always, thanks so much for joining us today. I know you're here because you want to keep growing and getting better. And I just want to say, I am so proud of you for that. The world needs your voice, your influence, and your leadership. And remember, everyone has influence, so lead where you are.